Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Reinard. I am a Senior Product Specialist with Lacerte and your presenter for this afternoon's meeting, which I call Understanding the Benefits of Lacerte. Before I get started, first of all, thank you. I appreciate you all taking time out of your schedule to join me for this conference today. I anticipate we're probably going to go about 60 minutes. It'll really just depend on the number of questions that I get. Sometimes we may run a little longer, but I try to keep it right at 60 minutes. I should also let you know that when you join the conference, I mute all of your telephones, or any. We won't be able to talk back and forth. Basically, I mute everyone because I just want to make sure we don't get any background noise. However, I take a lot of questions during these meetings, and if you want to ask me a question, there's a chat tool in the WebEx software that we're using. Just go into that chat pane and put your question there and shoot it over to me, and then I'll address all the questions as they come in from the group. This particular webinar I do on Lacerte is really one of my favorite things that I do in my job. I love demonstrating Lacerte. And the goal of this really for me and hopefully for you is in 60 minutes, I can kind of show you the things that I know are our best attributes. Why are the reasons you should consider Lacerte? And I'm going to take you beginning to end through the tax application and kind of show you in each different area of the workflow, whether it's creating clients or entering data or e-file, how we think we just do it a little bit better. And then you can determine for yourself if you agree with me. Again, questions are completely fair game. If you want to ask a question, just drop it in chat and shoot it over to me, and I'll be happy to address your questions. My personal background, as you can see, I've been with Lacerte a very long time, 33 years, one of the original employees, and I've been through product management and marketing. And now I do a lot of training as well as these live webinars because I just like demonstrating Lacerte. So hopefully, again, you'll enjoy the course. So I'm going to start us off by probably running through about 5 minutes of slides. I just want to give you guys a background on kind of what is Lacerte, what's it capable of, and then we'll jump into the program after that, and then we'll spend the rest of the time in the program, asking questions, giving you guys some responses. So let's go ahead and begin. The second slide I have is just a quick slide. Who is Lacerte Tax? A little bit of background. We have been in this industry with this. Last year was our 34th tax season, so we've got a lot of great experience. And I think the things that Lacerte really delivers for our customers are three things, and that is that it's comprehensive. It can do the most complex tax returns you have. It's also very accurate and reliable, so you're not going to get a lot of notices, or your customers aren't. And it's also a nice byproduct is it's really fast and easy to use. We were recently ranked #1 in terms of ease of use, easy to learn in an AICPA survey. Now, we're not all tax. There are other components that we also have, things like integrated document management with client portal capabilities, and I'll explain what that is in a bit. The ability to get an electronic signature on those 8879s and have it tracked right in Lacerte. The best trial balance in terms of the ability to import QuickBooks files in particular. We do a lot of pre-mapping on those imports so you don't have to do as much work, and it's just built into one of our menus. We also offer something that other vendors don't, and I think our ability, or the fact that we're owned by Intuit gives us the ability to do this, which is a broker and W-2 import directly from the source. We really expanded on that in 2014. We upped it to about 75 W-2 providers and about 300 of the most popular banks and brokers, so you guys could just pull the data right into Lacerte. As I mentioned, we're an Intuit program. Intuit's trusted by millions of people and businesses every day. And I always like to say this up front, before you go through this long demonstration I'm giving, Lacerte is not for everyone. If you are doing really of the simpler variety of types of returns, there might be a better offer or option out there. Really what Lacerte, or who we've built the program for, are firms that prepare returns that have some complexity and who derive or want to derive a really good percentage of their revenue from the tax side of the business. They're looking for growth and efficiency. Or if you're just starting out and you want to build and grow a successful practice, this is a good place to start. And we talk about comprehensiveness. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but what do we mean when we say that? It just means that we have full coverage of the federal and state tax forms that you need, about 5,700 forms in Lacerte. And that's over 9 different tax programs that we offer. Tons and tons of feedback. This is one of our clients' favorite things, is that we have a lot of diagnostics, of which about 12 of the 20,000 are simply informational in nature, letting you know about things that you might want to consider, things that the program has picked up on where you might do something different to the return to get a better outcome. Now, lots and lots of high-end calculations that you would expect from a higher-end program. This isn't everything, but it's the things that I typically get questions on. Can we do multi-state K1s? We have consolidated corporate program software, publicly traded partnerships, all the basis calculations, full-blown depreciation modules, Schedule J for income averaging. If you have clients with oil and gas properties, it's just built right into the software. You can handle it. Accuracy and reliable. The stat I would give is that less than 1% of the returns that get filed through Lacerte are rejected for e-filing, so it's pretty rare. Now, there are a lot of other automation and tools that we include so that you guys aren't moving data from one part of the return to another, or in this case, the trial balance where you have the import flow, K1 transferring from business returns to 1040, and also business to business K1 transfers. I mentioned the broker direct import, married filing joint and separate with the ability to split the tax return, of course. Like-kind exchanges are difficult entries in any software. We have a little wizard that we run you through, asks what type of an asset it is and so on, and it kind of takes you through that process. And a lot of other stuff, kitty tax, but it's not everything. Just trying to impress upon you that we do some of the high-end transfer stuff. And then fast and easy to use for me. When I talk about Lacerte, this is the number one thing I talk about, because for me, having looked at all the competing vendor software, still no one really comes close to the ease of our product, and I think you'll be impressed. Number one, by AICPA, easiest to learn and use. Also, extensive customizations. We have an options area where you go in and design how you want to use Lacerte that'll really save you a lot of time in the course of the season. Also, really easy e-file. It's right on the main screen. You can send returns, also attach PDFs to any types of returns. And as I mentioned, now with the electronic signature. Document storage and client portals, and we use a company called SmartVault. Now, we have our own internal document management system called DMS, which is great. It's a desktop program we've had for a number of years. We also now provide an option for clients who want to go kind of a little higher end. SmartVault is the leading storage and client portal program really used by accounting firms across the country. Gives you the ability of saving things. It's all completely cloud-based, though they are coming out with a version that will allow you to save it local in 2015. But it also has a nice portal capability. You hear about portals. You can save a client's return to SmartVault. The client will receive an email that will allow them to click it and then log in and retrieve their data or share files with you. Okay, the last slide before we jump into the program. I always like to let people know that we give you certain things that you don't have to buy, which I think is nice. There's not a lot of nickel and diming. So the things that you will get included in your license are 3 different types of client organizers. We have one called a complete organizer, which is if you use organizers today, that's probably what you use. Prints a page for everything from the prior year, and the client can fill it out. We have a condensed version. If you don't want to have all the paper, it'll change the documents to say, just attach the W-2s, just attach the 1099s. So it's a shortened version. The third is a free electronic organizer. If you prefer to just shoot it out to them in an email, have them fill it out, and then you can pull it back in. We also include e-file. We don't charge anything for e-file. Federal, regardless of what programs you're using, federal and state, we include it. Also, for those of you who like to offer a little tax planning, we include a tax planning module that's very nice. You can export your file directly to it. You can you can project out 10 years. You can do multiple projections within each year. And it works very much like the Lacerte tax program in terms of learning curve. We also include, we don't charge anything for the direct download of W-2s and 1099s from about 400 companies. And something that's new for us for us in 2014, something called Intuit Link. Another thing that we include with our software purchase is your ability to, right from the Lacerte screen, invite someone to join you on a collaborative website. So you can ask them questions, you can have them upload documents to you, and there's kind of a checklist, a running checklist that gets going. It's really, really nice. Okay, so those are some of the things. A few of these we added in 2014. I'll also show you something called the Analyzer as I'm doing the demonstration. All right, so hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of where Lacerte sits in the market. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump into Lacerte 2014, and that is what you are seeing on your screen currently. Again, you guys, if there are any questions for me, please ask. I beg of you. This is a great opportunity for you to ask a question. So if there's anything you want to know about, just put it in chat and then fire it off to me. All right, this is the opening screen of Lacerte Tax. We call this the client screen for good reason. What we do here is we list every tax return that you have in Lacerte, and they're listed by their full name and last name first. This list of returns that I'm currently viewing are all of my 1040 tax returns. At the top of the screen under Client, under Tax Type, you can see the different programs: Individual, Partnership, Corp, Fiduciary, Exempt, Estate, Gift, and Benefit Plan. But I'm going to do my demonstration using a 1040 tax return. Just know that all the other programs are 100% identical to this. Okay? So the client screen in Lacerte is where you manage all of your files, all of your practice management tools. All that is built in right here. It's almost like a dashboard with data. And I'm going to talk about a few of those things in just a second. What I'd like you to do, though, is look up in the upper left-hand side of our program screen, and you can see there are 6 tabs sitting up there. We're going to talk about the first 5 of them extensively today. But basically what we've done is we've taken the typical workflow that you guys all go through, right? First you enter data, then you review the forms, then you check for errors, and then you might offer the client some suggestions on like some tax planning type stuff. That's the way we lay out Lacerte, so it makes it easy when you first start to use it to know that all you're doing is you're moving from left to right as you go through the tax returns. Super simple. So right now, the current tab that's marked or highlighted is clients. So that's why I'm seeing a list of my clients. If I double click on any of these tax returns, it's going to open it and the tab will automatically shift to detail. And in detail is where I enter all the data. The W-2s, assets, K-1s, everything goes there. Now, once I'm done entering data in Lacerte, where would I actually see the completed return? That's the next tab called Forms. That's where I see the results. Federal, state, all the forms and schedules. After that, self-explanatory diagnostics is where you clean things up. If you missed anything, we've got informational diagnostics. That's where you'll see it. Finally, we've got something called the analysis, which is pretty cool. I don't know if other programs offer this or not. All you do is you click the tab, and after you've created the return, it's going to offer some suggestions, things like IRA contributions that they made and how much they saved, or what they could have contributed to a SEP and then what they would have saved, giving you some things that you can kind of discuss with them as part of the tax prep process. Now, the last item is the e-signature dashboard, which I'm not going to get into in this meeting today, but I will explain kind of how it works. But we're going to be dealing primarily with the 5 tabs. So what I'm going to do now over the course of roughly the next 20 minutes is we're going to go through the whole flow. I'm going to go to every tab. I'm going to show you where I think Lacerte kind of does it a little bit better, and then again, you can decide for yourself. Okay, but let's start with tab number 1, which is clients. What do clients love about this? One of the things they love is the ability to display relevant information. And what I mean is you can create your own set of columns out here. We give you about 6 or 7 when you first install the software. But rather than maybe only giving you access to 20 or 30 fields like you see in most programs, we give you access to over 500 fields. So basically what you're doing is you're creating a spreadsheet of the data that allows you to manage your practice a little bit better. I've got columns for, of course, their name and the status, so I know that this return's on hold, information pending, under review. I need to schedule a planning appointment for them. It keeps track of my work. I've got a prepare. I've got one that indicates anyone that's missing any information from the return, which I'll explain what that is in a bit. But if I scroll over to the right, I've got fields for things like federal first quarter estimates. I want to know who has capital gains or federal tax bracket, amount due on account. Now, how do I change it up to get what I want? Simply right-click and say Adjust Display Columns. On the right side of the screen is a listing of every column that I'm looking at on my Lacerte program right now. Health savings account, alimony, prior year prep fees. And on the left is a really nice categorized list of all the different sections. So if I want a particular carryover to know if they've got it, I click here and I say contribution carryovers, federal depletion carryover, section 179 deduction carryover. Or if I go in here to something like client invoice, or maybe I click on taxes. Here's everything that's considered a tax: AMT, additional Medicare, tax after credits, tax on an IRA. So it's really kind of cool that you can design this the way you want. And by the way, all of those fields are exportable out to Excel for whatever reason. You can go to clients and just hit export, export to file, and you can choose the columns and you can export it out. I showed briefly the status column, probably the most widely used feature in Lacerte. And it's just a simple way to, and most software has this, the ability to actually mark something in a status so you can keep track. What's nice about Lacerte is we make it really easy to change it. So once you're ready to change it from one status to another, like for Jensen, right now their tax return is information pending. How do I change it? There's a button at the top. There's also an F4 function key, but I just click the button, and all I do is I change it from the list final and click OK. Now it's final. Simple. What's cool about Lacerte, though, is what's nice about the client screen is that you can do multiple transactions at the same time. A lot of programs, you really can't do that. And what I mean by that is, if I have 5 statuses to change at the end of a day, right, all I have to do is select all 5 that I want to change. I click my status button, and it says, do you want to apply the same status to all these clients or set a separate status? I say the same, give me everybody, I want to mark everybody now on extension, and it's all done. Some programs, I got to open the tax return, 5 different tax returns, save the status, come back out. This is kind of the value of having a really nice screen like this. Okay, on the left-hand side of our client screen is a section called a filter. A lot of our clients are doing 500, 600, 700, 1,000 returns or more, and there's a time during tax season when they go, I'd really like to only see those clients that I have on extension. Those are the ones I need to finalize. That's what the filtering does. It narrows your list down to different segments. So if I go to client status and I say, give me everyone who's on extension, I know right here that I've got 7. I can work on these returns right now. How many do I have that are final or under review or transferred? Okay, we even have filters for preparers. So if you're John or Kevin or Tom, just click your name and you'll see only those returns. So I think, overall managing of the data, this client screen has a lot more capability than what you generally see with inside of tax software programs. And there's about 10 other things here, but I'm going to stop there. All right, so let's open up a client. I have a tax return that I use for demonstrations. This one right here called Jack and Kathy Jensen. Now, the way I do this generally is I will kind of take you through all the tabs using an existing return so that I'm not spending a lot of time entering a bunch of data. I have other things I could be doing rather than entering data. Now, when I'm done and take you through the process, I'm going to come back out to the client screen. I'm going to create a brand new return. I call it the 5-minute tax return, just so you really can see, from the beginning how that works. So let's double click on our sample file, Jack and Kathy Jensen, and open it up. And you'll see right away in the upper left, the tab is now on detail. Remember, that's where I said we enter all the data. The first screen that you see, or the main screen of data entry, is something we call the table of contents. Lacerte is not what you would consider a forms-based data entry. For those of you who know what forms-based is, it means you're using the IRS form and you're going to line 7 and you're clicking and you're going to wages, or line 17 to Schedule E. Lacerte doesn't work that way. What we do is we take all of the categories of a tax return and we put them on one screen, and we put each item in within each category. So really all you're dealing with is this one screen. It breaks it down in the flow of the tax return. It's extremely logical. I've got general information. That's client information like name and address and residency. Number 2, my dependents go there. If I want to do an invoice, I can use screen 5.1. Payments and penalties for your estimate entries and extensions. And then you've got a section called income, which literally lists everything that's considered income. And that continues at the top of the second column for things like pass-through K1s. Deductions has all your deductions, whether it's vehicles, moving expenses, itemized deductions, or adjustments for like an IRA or a Roth. Then you've got credits, taxes. We have a section we call other. You want to file an election, add some notes to the tax return, or just notes for your own reference. State and local, and then what we finally have over here is called miscellaneous forms. Kind of difficult to categorize. If I scroll to the right, I have a whole nother layer of miscellaneous forms, so I can do injured spouse or power of attorney, change of address, and have it integrated. Now, how do I use this? Pretty simple, right? If I've got wages, I click screen 10, I open it, and I plug in the W-2. If I have adjustments, it's on screen 24. What is super valuable and I think is better, you guys, is that Lacerte puts everything on one screen. All the other software I've ever looked at, some of them you'll have navigation down the left side and you click income and it drops you to a subscreen. And then if you want to enter interest and dividends, you click another button and it drops you into another subscreen. We don't do that. There's no layering, so you find what you want really quickly. Now, everything on the screen that has a bolded description means that, of course, there's data already on that screen. It's an active screen. It's got data. At the very bottom of the screen, you'll notice there's a series of tabs that run along. Now, what is the difference between the tabs and the bolded screens? Nothing. Every time you add a screen and you get a bolded label like wages, we're going to put a tab for wages down here, and interest and dividends and my dispositions and my K1s. Why do we do this? Because we're concerned about the time it takes you to move around the tax return. If I go into, business income Schedule C, and I enter all the client's business income, and now I want to go to the Schedule A, I know they already have itemized deductions. I just click Schedule A and it's right there. I'm on itemized deductions. All right, I want to go directly to the K1 screen. I want to go to Schedule C. It's just a matter of using the tabs. So what's as cool is when you do a return in 1 year in Lacerte, you transfer everything forward, and you open this return for the first time in, let's say, 2015, these screens will already be bolded because the stuff that's come over from the prior year, your tabs are already going to be there. So doing next year's return is just wages, interest, dividends, 1099-G, dispositions, and just moving yourself really quickly through the return. Super logical. I've never had anyone say after the explanation, Kevin, I don't understand what you guys are trying to do here. It's super logical. Anyone can really understand. It's very, 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 very good. Any questions on data entry? That's a really kind of a high level look at it, but I just want to kind of show you around and what it all meant. The other thing too is if you prefer to use your keyboard, Lacerte is really, really good with the keyboard. Pretty much the reason why you see these numbers on every screen is for keyboard navigation, right? My cursor is sitting on screen 16, but I'd like to go and enter an IRA on screen 24. I can just type 24 and press the enter key and I'm in. If I want to leave this screen and go back to the table of contents, just escape and I'm out, right? The old kind of DOS commands. If I want to go to 16, business income, I'm in, escape, I'm out. Dependents 2, escape, I'm out. Pretty nice. Okay. Any questions on that? So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to dive into some of the data entry screens and stuff in a bit. But what I like to do is take you through the final few tabs of the program. So remember, we started here on clients. We opened Jensen. We get to our table of contents. And let's say we've entered all the data for our tax return. We're ready to take a look at it. Where do we go? Up here on next tab, right? Forms. Now I can also hit the Alt-F key on my keyboard if I'm a keyboard person, but clicking forms will give you the results. Okay, now the forms review in Lacerte is outstanding. I've looked, again, I keep saying this, but I looked at the other competitors and I can kind of tell you what the differences are. Really, I think the key difference is that when you get here, you're looking at the exact tax return. You don't have to print it or preview it ever. Everything in the return is listed down the left-hand side of the page. So I've got my 1040 and my Schedule A, B, C, D, and everything, my letter, my invoice. I never have to do a print preview. Above there, there's a box that says state. Listed as US, which is Fed, in California. If I click CA, of course, this list is now going to show my California forms or my Fed forms. One of the things you'll notice about the quality of the program is even something as simple as a federal income tax summary. You notice on my summary, there's nothing that has a $0 amount other than maybe the prior year, right? A lot of programs, when they build something like a summary, it's a fixed worksheet or page. So if there isn't Schedule C or rentals, you see a whole bunch of zeros and the form winds up being a lot longer than it needs to. We only include the things that are actually part of the client's return. I think that's good. If I click to the left and click 1040, it's just a mirror image of your printed 1040. Now, where do I think we do a really good job here? One of them is if I come down in Lacerte, you start to notice on your forms these little things called WKS. Of course, that stands for worksheet. Lacerte generates a ton of paper. You don't necessarily have to print it, but when you have worksheets or backup schedules so you can see how we've arrived at a number, we're the only vendor that puts the link to the worksheet on the form directly next to the line that it's associated to. So if I scroll down and I see here they have an IRA deduction, doesn't look like they have one, but I can click a worksheet and actually see the computations of the IRA. Okay, or if I'm coming up here and I want to know, worksheet for wages, a simple one, 2 employers and a total. So you'll see those all over your forms. They don't print from on the form itself. It's just kind of a tool to let you get access to them real quicker. Now, probably my favorite feature in review, which our clients love and use all the time, is even though I mentioned that you're not entering data from the form, right? It's not forms data entry. You can go to any line on your tax return, and it doesn't matter if there's a number on that line right now or not. Like I've got $4,000 in qualified dividends. If I right click on any of these fields, I get a feature called Jump to Input. Basically what this thing is an electronic cross-reference where it's going to bring up a list of all the places that where you enter data that make up that $4,000. So let me click Jump to Input. So what do I get? I get 1099 DIV screen. I've got one entry in there for Citicorp, and yeah, there was an amount, qualified dividends, $1,500. It also will pull in the names of any partnership K1s I've got, or S Corp or estate, list every one of them, and show the amounts on the right if those particular K1s had qualified dividends. All right. If I want to visit I called it name, but if I click, it's going to take me right to that partnership K1, and it takes me directly to the qualified dividends field. That makes editing really nice because I've got a direct link. I go back to the form, and then it's going to update the amount. Now it shows us $3,000 because I changed it. Same thing with W-2s. I got $135,000 on line 7. I right click, shows me all the details. Well, something's coming from ABC company, 70 grand, Intel, 65,000. If I had adoption benefits or tip income or employee reimbursements, it would list every amount and I could link back to any of those. So it's available on every field, almost every field, not calculated fields because that would be difficult, but you get the idea. If it's something like alimony, right? You want to link back to the alimony field because you thought they had alimony, but there's no number, right click, jump. But if there's only one place that you could go, it doesn't bring up a box. It just takes you to alimony and puts you right in the field for either taxpayer or spouse, and you can enter it right there. Okay, so that's really good. I think the main difference is that some programs don't have this at all. Some have it, but it's kind of very simple, meaning if I right-clicked on qualified dividends and I linked back, it doesn't bring up a box of all the detail first. It just drops me back on the dividend screen, even though the number could be flowing from a K1. And it puts you right on the top line of all your interest and dividends payers, and you still have to go down and find the amount. This is direct linkage, so hopefully it's something that you'll like and use. Okay? You probably, probably noticed all these check marks over here. Let me remove those from the form. Under View, I can say clear the audit checks on all forms, so it removes them. Basically what it is, we want to give you the ability to check off the things on the forms as you review them so you know you looked at them. So if I pass my mouse over 7, I click, it's just going to draw a little green check mark, and it just says, hey, I've reviewed it. It doesn't print on the printed form. It's just a tool to overlay on top so that you looked at it. Although one of the side benefits, right, I can right click and link back to the W-2 for ABC company. And when I do that and I change the amount to $80,000 and I come back to the form, then it's going to change and the check will change because now it's 145. It also checked the total income and that number is now different. All I have to do is recheck it and it will go back to green, how I wanted it. All right, there's a lot of other things I could show you here. The ability to put notes right here on the screen by right-clicking, adding notes that other people can see. But I think the key benefits here are you get everything in one section. You never, ever have to do a print preview in Lacerte to see the whole tax return. You have the worksheet links that speed that process up. You have the jump to input, so the data is never in a black box. You always know where it's coming from. And you have the tick marks if you choose to use those. After forms, diagnostics, pretty self-explanatory. I think most programs have very similar presentation of diagnostics. Lacerte, you have critical warnings at the top, where this is the stuff you need to get rid of or else you can't e-file. And then you've got your informational listed down in the lower section. You got to clear the stuff up top. They're all hyperlinked. It tells me here California W-2. I didn't put in the California ID number. I'm linked directly to the field where I enter the employer ID number, and then I simply click back and it drops off the list. This is where you'll find your informational diagnostics, telling me here that the spouse's IRA deduction was disallowed due to a modified adjusted gross income in excess of the threshold. $1,328 penalty has been generated because of the Affordable Care Act. And so on and so forth. The more complex your tax returns get, the better the informational diagnostics are. And I've recognized that some tax programs do a pretty good job with their informational diagnostics. Some really don't offer you anything in terms of things that you should consider. It's more like they're looking for critical errors all the time, but really not helping you out in terms of, hey, I thought maybe I overlooked something. The program will find it. Okay. If you ever override a number in the data entry, on the left, we also have a button called Overrides where you can see every field that you may have made an override entry on, or you can just look at the base diagnostics. So clear the top, read the bottom. Finally, is something that I think is unique is something called an analysis. And what we're trying to do here is just give you some basic data that you can share or things that you can make better decisions on when you're doing someone's return. In this case, it tells me they could have contributed $6,500 to a Roth IRA for this year and next year. I mean, if they have a Schedule C, it'll talk about SEP. If there's IRA contributions available, it'll talk about that. It gives you tax tips. The one I like here is that their taxable income excluding capital gains and qualified dividends is $122,295. They're in the 25% bracket. Would need to increase next year by $26,555 to move them into the next highest bracket. We also provide these things down here that I think are helpful. Schedule A and Schedule C, what we call comparison flags. What it's doing is it's comparing this tax return to the national average. Someone with similar AGI who's taking the same deduction, are you higher as a percentage or lower? So right now, it looks like my state and local taxes are 58% lower. I'm coming in pretty good on all these. They're pretty much lower. I did a tax return last year where I had a sample where I had their, like the commission expense was 5,000% higher. Well, that's something if you see that you could say, well, that might be something I take a kind of a second glance at. All right. So that in about 20 minutes is really, you've essentially been kind of trained on how to use Lacerte. It's that simple. Remember, client screen, detail with your table of contents, forms with all of the great tools that will get you through that process faster, the diagnostic tools, our analysis tool. By the way, you can print the analysis with the tax return. If I go back to forms right now, the last item on my list here says analysis, and I can print this and include it with the return, or you can do it return by return or not at all. Some clients just click the tab and have that conversation with a customer. All right. The other thing I think, you guys, that ultimately will save you the most time as you use our software is the fact that you don't have to use our tabs in a particular order. And we're kind of fond of saying that most software really has what we call a forced workflow. I can't view a form until I open the tax return and calculate it and then call up the forms. In Lacerte, there's none of that. I mean, if I want to see the Jensen return, all I do is I'm sitting right here. I just hit Alt-F with one keystroke. Here it is. When I'm done, Alt-C, and I'm all the way back out to the client screen. I want to look at this client's diagnostics, no problem. I believe the key for that is Alt-I, okay, and you can move right into diagnostics. When you hit Alt-C, you're right back out to the tax return. That's really good, right? It's a dashboard, so you're in and you're out without having to go through these kind of gyrations to get the things that you want. All right, any questions so far? I know my pace. I know my pace is quick. It's always seemed to work. If you feel like you can't keep up, just shout it out in chat and say, Kevin, slow down. But I've got a lot to cover, and hopefully some of these things are compelling enough to you guys. All right, so let's do this. Let's reopen Jones. I want you to look at what some of these screens look like because they're kind of unique. There's two types. I have a screen like Schedule C and Schedule E and Schedule F and K1s. They're all very much the same. I think 90% of our data entry screens are exactly the same as the others. If I open up Schedule C, the way this works is we open up business number 1 on your screen, right? The principal business or profession. We've built in all the business codes. You have a general information section, and then you get right into the income, the cost of goods, the expenses, just your typical data for your Schedule C. Now, if you look over to the left of the screen, you see a box called Schedule. It lists business because that's the principal business that I called it. But you see at the bottom, there's a button for add and a button for delete. If you want to add, you can also do Control A on your keyboard. But if I click add, I'm just going to type in, let's say, biz 2, whatever that biz is. And now that's listed as biz 2 on the left. That's how you add a property, whether it's a rental, whether it's a Schedule C. So once you've got a bunch of properties in your list, you just click number 1, I'm looking at number 1. Number 2, I'm looking at number 2. Over on the left is also a thing called a section. There are programs that will, like on a Schedule C, they'll break the Schedule C into 4 different separate screens. One screen is general information, one is income, one is expenses. We don't do that because our screens scroll so you can see all the data on one. But what you get over here on the left is a box called section, letting you know what sections are included here on the Lacerte Schedule C. So if I'm sitting here on business 2, and I want to go to business number 1, and I want to go right to the expense section, it's just a matter of clicking 1, expenses, and there I am. I'm on a completely different business right on the first line of the expense section. The other thing too is if I click expenses and I put in, bank charges of $150, we even will bold the section heading over here. A lot of times you want to know whether or not this client has prior year unallowed passive losses. There's a section for it. If there are losses there, that'll actually be bold. So if you click it, there are going to be some numbers in that section. Really nice design. The same thing that we do with rental properties. If I click on number 18, I don't have any rentals. So I'll just call this, Elm Avenue. Right? Elm Avenue condo. Now that's Elm Avenue condo. I hit Control A. Let's add another one. State Street, whatever. We press enter. Now that's number 2. It's easy to add. Okay. If you want to delete it, of course, there's a button for delete. You can go ahead and yank it out right there as well. Okay. Now the other kind of input screen, you'll find this in other programs as well. It's kind of what we call a grid. So when you enter a lot of stuff like wages and assets and interest and dividends, it's a little slightly different format. If I open number 12, which is dividends, it's the top part of my page. Now the way these grids work is they're designed around the things that we know, being in this business for 34 years, that people generally, not every time, but generally will enter off of a 1099 DIV. Name of payer, ordinary dividends, qualified, capital gains, bonds, and so on. Okay. Now, if I put in $1,500 of capital gains or ordinary dividends for Citibank, and I want to add another one, just arrow down or hit add, whatever you want, and type in and keep putting them all in. So if I have 50, I can grab the bottom of this, I can yank it down and see them all at once. All of these column headings are also sortable if you want to find an item, and it's also totaling those items at the bottom of the screen there. Okay. Same thing if I go into interest, I've got name of payer, bank, seller finance, mortgage. Here's what I need to enter. Now, one thing you should know though is, where are all the other entries? What if I've got stuff that won't fit in the grid? Well, we have a screen down below that you can use called the expanded screen, which means down here you see every entry on a 1099 DIV or INT, while the stuff at the top's the most common. So if I needed to enter like tax withheld or anything else related to a 1099, I can just come right down here, and here are all the tax exempt adjustments for federal tax interest, tax withheld, early withdrawal penalty. All the other stuff is found in the expanded section. If I have more than one item up here, like if I click add and I type in just whatever, right? Now, if I'm on it up here, it's the expanded screen for that item down here. If I'm on B of A, it's the expanded for that item down there. Simple. Same thing with wages. It's a grid style so that you can enter the information very rapidly. Now, I've had clients tell me, though, or people that are considering Lacerte, they say, when I enter a W-2, it looks just like the W-2. Do you guys have an entry that looks like that? Yeah, you can disable the grids in Lacerte if you don't want to use them. There's a button at the top of the screen that says show or hide the grid. Get rid of it. Now what you're left with is a W-2 screen that looks just a lot more like a W-2 screen, right? You can select Golden State Overnight. It fills everything out. Here's my W-2. I put in $70,000 and it calculates FICA and does all that for me. Okay. The only difference is it's not a grid. Everything's on the left, just like all the other forms, like a Schedule E, Schedule F. I can click add and pop in a brand new W-2. Maybe that one for Intel. That's how I do it. Then I click on the left, Golden State, Intel. Nice. Okay, those are grids versus what we call just a vertical scrolling screen. Those are really the two types you're going to see. Same thing with dependents. You go in there, right? It is a straight screen, one column. Sally Jones, relationship, all that. I think you'll like in Lacerte, when you add a new return, we try to make a lot of assumptions because We know that 9 times out of 10 tax returns go one way, right? They materially participated in their business or rental property and so on. Same thing with things like adding a dependent. It'll assume months lived at home 12. It'll assume it's a child living with the taxpayer, and unless you indicate it's not. Down here is also the ability to mark a dependent as not claimed each year and let the program take care of tracking whether it should be taken in even or odd years. Okay. If I move into, let me see, hang on one sec. Oh, let me show you something else. If I go back into my Schedule C, some programs do this, some don't. We do have columns on the right side of our data entry screen that say prior year amount. I know there's a program that you can hit F8 and get the same thing. Some programs don't offer prior year amounts. This is nice because, these are the amounts that they had last year that you can reference against what you're entering this year without having to go back to the prior year tax return. Same thing, if I go to Schedule E, I got prior year. They'll even give you here prior year direct and indirect expenses on my Schedule E. Okay, any questions on that? Now let me show you a function. Again, you guys, this webinar is quick. I try to show you what I can show you based on what I know people like to see, but there are a lot of things I don't show. The K1 transfer, we do have it. It works really well. Our married filing joint and separate, consolidated corporate returns. We don't get into a lot of that. But one feature I always like to show, just because of the amount of time it saves our customers, is this. When you do an interview of one of your clients and you determine that they don't have everything you need to fill out the tax return or complete it, we call that at Lacerte missing information. We have a tool built specifically for that saves our customers about 16 minutes on every return when they have the need to track missing information. Let me show you. So I'm going to go back into number 16, business income. I'm going to go back up to the top of the screen and maybe into the expense section. The client just told me that they didn't have any idea what their commission expense was. So rather than you writing it down, all you do is you go to the field, right-click, and say missing data. It just draws a little red rectangle on it. Maybe they also don't know their employee benefit numbers, and maybe on Schedule A, they don't know, maybe their home mortgage interest. They lost the statement. So I've marked 3 things. So that's cool, right? I don't write it down. Now, at any time, you can click this button at the top of the screen. It's called Missing Data. It produces a list, which is basically taking all of those fields that you marked and making one list out of it. That's cool. Now you've got a list that's electronic that every preparer can see. There's no paper floating around the desk. Now, down below, we've taken it a step further. One of the biggest requests was, I'm tired of typing emails. Can you just give us the ability to auto-generate an email? That's what this does. It's already got a greeting in there. If you don't like the greeting we give you, change it and you can put in your own. All of the items at the top, commission, employee benefit programs, home mortgage interest, they're already down here in the body of the email that you're going to send. Just go down there and click Create Email. Now you notice on this return, in the Send To field, there's nothing there. That's because on the client information screen, I didn't put it in. So look at the very bottom left of my screen. You see the client information tab? That's the first screen where we ask you about residency and e-file and the filing status. But I didn't put in Barry Jones's email. So I'm going to go down into the taxpayer contact information and just put in Kevin. Man, my eyes are so bad. Kevin at intuit.com. Okay, now if I bring up the missing information tool, my email is automatically there. Now, if you don't enter it in client information, it'll pull it in here, or it'll be blank, but you can enter it right on the fly going that way. All right? So I think we kind of understand the flow of Lacerte. What I want to do is kind of just transition a little bit and talk about the system options. One of the most important things is when you first get the program, you kind of want to design it and make it work the way that you want it to work. Everybody, might calculate estimates different from firm to firm, or maybe people print different things firm to firm. So when you first get Lacerte, top of the screen, there is a settings drop-down menu, and you're going to want to go to what we call options. If you're on a network, you're going to be using what we call master options, but I'm going to use options for this demo. So what you get are 9 different tabs running along the top of this box. Every one of these tabs are your global configurations that you're going to make so that the software works the same for every return you do. On the very far right is a tab called Firm Information. I've got all the client information that's burned in. I can also add their e-file address there. If they're ERO contact, I can assign. then there's a preparers tab where all of my preparers go. I can have up to 999 preparers in Lacerte. Just go to the first empty slot, double click, put their PTIN in and all that. Okay. There's a tab on the far left. Remember the status feature I showed you to track the work? This gives you the ability of actually telling Lacerte, what exactly do I want to call my statuses? Maybe we gave you some, but you don't like them. We give you the top 5 statuses: transferred, information pending, under review, on extension, and final, as only a starting point. If you don't like what we gave you, double click and just type right over the top of it and change it. I added things like on hold, see office manager, 30 days past due, but this can be whatever you want. You can have 20. Also, fonts and colors. Doesn't seem like a big deal. Lacerte is the only program I've ever seen where you can go in here and I can say, you know what? On my data entry screen, my eyes are bad, and I'd prefer to have that in size 14 font, and it'll make it bigger for you. If I want to change the actual font, believe it or not, that Lacerte produces on my client screen and on my data entry, I can come right over here and say, you know what, I prefer to have it as Perpetua. Well, that looks kind of fancy, but it can be whatever you guys want. Okay, and let me go back to, I like Palatino Lindotype. I think that looks good. Okay, and let's drop that back to a size 12. Also, the next one I want to talk about is called items to print. This is how you control what prints when you print, whether it's a client copy, a government copy, your own copy for your own records, what we refer to as the preparer copy. If you look on the left, it says prepare review, prepare file, client, government, extensions only. So what you're doing is you're coming in and you're clicking client, and on the right is a list of all the documents in the order that they will print in Lacerte. And all you're going to do is come in here and check what you want and uncheck what you don't think your client wants. Now, we set this up, just so you know, you don't have to go running into this section right away. I would create a few returns because we set up the defaults for what we know most clients are automatically doing. But if you print something and you want more paper or less paper, this is where you edit it. If I don't want a letter or an invoice, I uncheck it or I check it if I want it, but those will be checked for you. The general information like tax summaries and diagnostics and tax payment schedules for the estimates. Tax analysis, do I want to print that? Here's a whole big long list of different federal worksheets that you can include. And if there are if passive, they'll get passive worksheets. Okay? Down here we get into a whole section on depreciation schedules. 2014, 2015 for AMT, regular and book. Same thing for your federal oil and gas statements. Then we even let you edit all the state worksheets and what comes out in the tax return, the state depreciation, whole bunch of different things. Now, once you set up the client copy the way you want, just flip on the left and click Prepare File Copy and set that one up. That is what you're saving for your own records. Really nice. Okay? Now, where you determine exactly, let me fix my font again. I don't think my fonts and colors, and put that back to a 12. Okay. All right. The only other thing I wanted to mention, so that's where you tell us what prints in the return. If you look on the left, there's a tab called Setup. In here is how you tell us what is going to happen when I print a tax return, what we call a complete return. My settings right now say, okay, when I print, I'm going to send a client copy to the printer because I like to put it in a folder and give it to my client. I'm not printing the company copy. I'm not printing a government copy, just one copy going to the printer. If anything, what would I like to create as a PDF at the same time that I'm creating the printer copy? And if I don't want to print it as the PDF, I can use the Lacerte document management system, or I can use the new system that we've integrated with called SmartVault. And in this case, I said, prepare a file copy. I want it to go to SmartVault. Every time I hit Control P and print a return, I get a hard copy. The PDF goes directly to SmartVault and it's stored, whether it's my copy or the client copy. If it is the client copy that you're storing in the storage facility of SmartVault, the client will actually get pinged and they can log in and they can download it or review it, whatever they want. Okay, so that's kind of the setup for the software. Really nice. The nice thing is you don't have to do it more than once, because once you set up your options in 1 year, they transfer the next into the next, so it's all kind of a one-time deal. The last option setting that I wanted to mention, probably I didn't talk about it, but it's the most important one, is the one here called tax return options. You get a lot of variety in here. Like you see here, it says, do I want to default to e-file for every new client that I add? Right now it says no, but if I say yes, the e-file boxes will be checked for me. Text style. Some people like to print stuff on the return in mixed case. Maybe you want to force that up into uppercase. It'll do that. Things like credit card instructions. Client said, hey, how do I want to be able to include credit card instructions for my clients, but only clients who have a balance due. That's what this does. If you say yes, client has a balance due, their letter will add another paragraph saying, here's how you pay with a credit card. Down here are options that eliminate a bunch of decision making when you do your tax returns, because things typically run the same way. Presidential campaign fund. How do you want to mark it? Do you want to allow the IRS a designee discussion? Things like 1040As and EZs will be created by Lacerte if they are applicable. If you don't want them, I changed it to suppress from when applicable because I want everything to go on the 1040. Same thing with down here, you'll see, oops, let me go back up. It's federal tax options. You'll see things like 4562 where it says force. Well, maybe the 4562, they've got assets, but it's not really a required form, but rather having the client ask you, how come I didn't get it? Just set it to force. That way it'll print with their copy, no big deal, but and it's not going to print a blank depreciation. It's only if there are assets, okay? Do I want to report all the assets using the 8949, that attachment that lists all the assets? Even down here, you guys, to the estimate options, right? You guys calculate estimates probably regularly pretty similar on every return. So what Lacerte says is, why don't you just preset how you're going to do the estimates? If there's a threshold, if there's rounding, the fourth quarter state estimate, this changes what the letter says. You want the state letter to say due and required, due December 31st or earlier date of itemizing. These are your defaults. Now, the best thing about all of these is that once you create them, you do have the ability on every single return that you do to override all of them. So for example, I'm going to go into 2015 estimate screen, right? It says estimate options. This is the field where I select the estimate type or how I'm going to calculate. If it's blank, the program will assume to use the option, which is 100 to 110% of 2014 tax or 2013. But on this return, I want to do something different. It's an override field with bracket an O in brackets. All I do is say, you know what, on this one, all I want to do is generate blank estimates or calculate it some other way. That's a time saver because you don't have to go back to options, change it, run the return, and change the option back. Same with rounding. I set all my returns to round to $1, but this is a multi-million-dollar client. I would prefer to have them rounded up to down to the nearest 1,000. Just put a 4 in there. My fourth quarter state estimate says due and required on the state letter, but on this return, I'd prefer it to say due December 31st, 2015. Okay? If I go to a screen here called miscellaneous information, all of those ones near the top, like, see all these ones with overrides? These are all overriding. Mixed case, uppercase, I want to do that, right? 1040A when applicable or suppress. So if I've got it set at when applicable, I can suppress it on one return. All of the options have corresponding overrides at the point of entry is my point. Okay, any questions? You guys are pretty quiet. Okay, let's talk about something else now that I didn't mention, or I mentioned it a little bit, but one thing that we are really excited about at Lacerte is our ability to do importing. And we have some tools now that really no other vendors are offering. And I think the reason we have it is because Intuit already has these established banking relationships with hundreds of banks. Whether it's for importing into QuickBooks or importing into TurboTax, now our professional versions of our software also have that same capability. Okay, and how it kind of starts is when you go to the very bottom of column number 1 is a screen called Dispositions. This is basically our stock screen. Okay, yes and no. Initially, the grid is designed around the things that you enter when you enter a stock, like quantity, description, date acquired, date sold, sales price, cost. That's what I do, right? But our disposition screen is cool because in addition to stocks, it's anything the client is disposing of. So if I drop into the lower section over here, you'll see it says, let me just click in here. It's got $47.97. I can do current year, prior year installment sales, sale of home, casualty theft, like-kind exchanges. So essentially the design of this is I'm putting in my sales data above. If it's just a stock, I'm done. If it's a like-kind exchange, I put it up there. I go to the section for like-kind exchange, or I put the data there and I click sale of home and click a couple of buttons to do a home sale transaction. That's the design of it. But if you see down here, there are 2 buttons, one that says Schedule D Import, Download and Import Data. The Schedule D Import is our Excel import, which is real simple to use. direct from an Excel spreadsheet. This one is download and import data. That's the one you click that links to the broker and does the automatic import. Okay, and if you need a list of brokers that we work with, your sales rep can give you that. Just ask them for a list of brokers and they'll be happy to, so you can check and see if you've got some on the list. So yeah, Crystal asked, does the program automatically calculate depreciation and amortization for fixed assets and intangibles? Yes. Can it generate a report for the depreciation? Yeah, so yes on both of those. Our depreciation screen is very similar in style to some of these others. If I go to, I think it's screen number 22, depreciation, you notice that it's an entry screen that looks like a spreadsheet, right? Because these are the common questions. Description, form number, activity, category, date, place, and service, cost, section 179, and method. I just enter the data right across. It's really nice. Now, in terms of what we print, you choose what you want to print. So if I go to the tax return and they have depreciation, let me see if I've got depreciation schedules on this one. I don't. Let me see if I can find a sample. Let me go to Jensen. I think I might have entered an asset. No, let's go ahead and enter an asset. So I'm going to enter an asset for a Schedule C. Now, there's a couple of different ways I can do. Actually, I don't think I have a Schedule C in this client either. Hang on. Let me add one. And I'll just put in $35,000. Okay. Now, I can add depreciation one of two ways. I can be on my Schedule C, and I can click the button on the top left that says depreciation. Or I can go direct and enter it directly on depreciation without going to the Schedule C. One of the benefits of being in a form is when you click depreciation and you get to the data entry screen, we've already pre-populated the form number, which is just telling a software where it's being linked, and the activity number, what is the name of the business that it's being linked to. But that's done automatically by the program. Okay, so let's just go in here and put in ASSET for asset. The category, maybe it's, I don't know, let's say automobiles, date, place, and service. Not 2010, 01, 2014. Cost maybe was $15,000. And the method, we'll just pick an automobile method. Okay, that's it. That's my asset entry. Okay, now when I go to forms, I'll have the depreciation schedules over here on the left, both for depreciation 2014. Now we have a couple of different types. This is a real basic one, right? That's basically showing you by entity and then alphabetizing the asset list within that. Okay, and then I have another one over on the left called the regular depreciation, which gives you even more, right? I can scroll to the right and see all my entries, and then I've got my AMT look. I've got my book look as well right there. All right. That's generally what you get. Again, all your depreciation is exportable to Excel if you never need to do that. We also, if you use a standalone asset system, Lacerte gives you the ability right on the depreciation screen. You see right here it says fixed asset import. Just click the button and it's going to walk you through where are you putting it. I'm bringing it to a Schedule C. What's the activity number of that business? Find the file, import it, assign the columns to the appropriate fields, and it pulls it right in. So you also have that capability as well. All right, let me check my questions here. I'm good right now. All right, so what I'm going to do, that's all I'm going to do in terms of demonstration, you guys. If you don't remember anything else I told you today, just remember the nice thing about Lacerte is it's the easiest program to use. Once you know what the tabs do, it will take you a matter of minutes to understand and start producing tax returns. Now, let me go back to a couple of final slides. I just want to give you a heads up. We did a lot of work in 2014. We added a lot to the program. We have yet to announce what the new features and functions are going to be for 2015. But let me take you through a couple of these things. So what we did for 2014 is we added the integration with Smart Vault for storage and client portals, which I mentioned. We also now have year-round e-filing with the new MEEFS e-file system. You can also e-file estimated payments. We added a new thing that's free to you called Intuit Link. You're going to want to check this out. Intuit Link is our ability to have you guys with an online system that will allow you to collaborate with your customer and link it right through the Lacerte program. You notice if I go back to the 2014 program, see where it says Intuit Link? I can invite someone to join me on this website for the purpose of constant interaction. I can ask them questions. If there's a document I'm missing, they can take a photo of it or scan it and upload it to me. It's just a nice way to communicate back and forth. As I said, we do include that. We now have an integrated e-signature component. 8879 can now be handled electronically by your customer. Again, I'm on the Lacerte screen. E-signature status, all I do is click request. The client gets an email. They see their tax return and the 8879. It's an editable PDF, and we tell them exactly where they need to click and type their name. It converts it into a digital signature. Once it's done, this will say complete. Okay, so we do now have the 8879. Also, a big increase in the number of brokers. If you could have seen the program in 2013, I think we had 7 W-2 providers and about 26 brokers. Remember the numbers I told you now? Close to 300 brokers and over 70 W-2 providers. It's working so well that we're getting a ton of requests for additional providers, and we'll continue to add them and more. Okay. If you have interest in using Lacerte, which I hope you do, again, it's not for everyone. We do take every new customer through something called the new user program, just to be sure that you guys know everything you need to know before tax season gets here. Someone called an onboarding specialist will be the first person to contact you. They will offer you free training courses, free data conversion services. They'll give you all their contact information so you guys can communicate back and forth. I highly, highly recommend doing this. We do have new customers sometimes that don't take advantage of this. We don't know why, but a high percentage do, and it will really save you a lot of stress in terms of the conversion and getting everything up to speed. Okay, the last slide I have is, first of all, let me just thank you for attending, you guys. I do appreciate you spending time with me, especially on a Friday, so close to the end of tax season. If you have interest in anything that we've talked about, getting prices, anything like that, the number there is the one you want to dial. It's 800-765-7777. That will get you directly to a rep. They're excellent. They can handle any question. I'm going to send you a survey in a few minutes. If you have a few minutes and you want to fill it out, I'd really appreciate it. It's only 4 questions on a scale of 1 to 5. What did you think? And there's an open comment section. If you really thought it was terrible, I want to know it. If you liked it, yeah, you can tell me that too. That's not bad. The only other thing I would say is if you have the need to contact me, you can directly. My email address is here, Kevin_Reinard@intuit.com. Okay? I'll just stop by saying we've been doing this a long time, 34 years. I think we've really been one of those companies that focuses exactly on what the customers want and really trying to eliminate the work and the bad processes that customers have. That's why Lacerte clients are successful, and we have every reason to believe that you would be the same way. So thank you, everyone. If there are any questions at this point, I'm more than happy to take them. Otherwise, you are free to go with my thanks. Thanks a lot, everybody.